With the Fighting Irish coming back after a crushing defeat at the hands of Northern Illinois, they would take its show on the road to West Lafayette for an in-state rivalry against long in-state rival Purdue and see if they could get this offense that was very stagnant back on track. Want to find out how they performed? Find out next on Talk Like a Champion. Welcome back. Thank you guys so much for spending a little time with us on Talk Like a Champion. I am Mr. CeeLo here, joining you on a victorious day, as the Fighting Irish were able to pull out one of the more impressive victories today. And I can honestly tell you guys, it was one of those games where everything went right. Riley Leonard looked a lot like whom we thought he was. And this being on a positive swing this time, because as you guys know, this time last week we were not talking so positively, but this time it's much better. But the Irish came out 66-7 over the Purdue Boilermakers. For the longest time it was 0. It was late in the third quarter when they finally got on the board. But the beautiful thing about it is we got to see all our guys perform. We had Jeremiah Love go over 100 yards rushing. He had 10 carries, 109 yards, and a score. Riley Leonard had 11 carries and exactly 100 yards rushing and 3 scores. Jadarian Price had 8 carries, 86 yards, and a score, capped off by that big 70-yarder he had at the end of the half. And there were so many other things, and I know a lot of people are going to say, are you going to bring up the second teamers? I am. But the most important thing we got to get out is how well the offense performed. Now, as far as throwing the football, probably the most important detail we had to get out is we had to get out of this stigma that we were one of a handful of teams that had not scored on a pass. Today, Steve Angeli made that happen. So, looking here, a lot of things went right for the Irish. It seemed like the floodgates opened when it came to how the Irish were performing on offense, how they were able to get things structured, whether it was the offensive line. There were several different times where we, as I discussed, like many other influencers have said, that we needed to mix things up. We needed to go with an extra package. We needed to do some things different, like putting Price and Love on the field at the same time. Putting the tight ends. You guys, I was so happy to see Kevin Ballman, Mitchell Evans, Cooper Flanagan, and Eli Raridan. Guys, we are tight end you. And the whole point of this show, guys, is that people in South Bend will get a hit on it, and that so many people that are Irish Nation will understand what I've been saying. We've got tight ends galore here. Cooper Flanagan had that touchdown. Cooper Flanagan had the 28-yard touchdown reception from Steve Angeli, my mistake, you guys. Raritan had 3 catches for 30 yards. And then you had Mitchell Evans getting into action. He had 3 catches, 27 yards. And then you had Kevin Bowman, who had a touchdown. We are loaded at tight end. And with the type of football that is being played nowadays, if you can get tight ends that can catch the football and you can put them on the perimeter to do different things, this makes you more diverse, and it makes you so tough to defend with other squads that don't even have the type of safeties and other need-be athletes to go out there with the guys that we have on the field. Now, we saw Jaden Thomas get some action this week. This was really a fresh sight to see, as well as Jaden Harrison. This was also a huge sign of relief. But unfortunately, the problem is it's not coming from Riley Leonard. And I'm hearing too many people say, well, he's just got to be who he is. Look, him being who he is, it might win us out the rest of the season. But we already know we're competing for national championships because we don't have a conference championship game. So we can't just be settling for winning a lot of games. At some point, there's got to be somebody that's going to say, throughout all of this, we've got to get this guy throwing the football more efficiently. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go down the good things to look at. Let's look at the offensive line. Now, we did sustain a couple of injuries, you guys, so we need to be fully aware that we've got 2 of our linemen that we're going to have to keep our eyes on because these guys are very important. We were already limited amongst that offensive line when it came to starters. I think the big thing we've got to be concerned with is Billy Schrott's injury, because we have to understand that in order for us, who's going to step into that spot? To me, that's the question that is huge. And then, of course, we also lost Jordan Patella. Now, we did do well in spite of his injury, but make no mistake about it. This is one of the more important pieces to that defense, which was really good, you guys. I have to just harp on these guys. But, looking at a lot of these guys that came in, especially the Kennedy Urlacher play. This kid is going to be oh my goodness, he is going to be a major player on this defense for many years to come. Just watching him fly all over the ball and how he hits, how he tackles. I know I'm not supposed to be talking about the defense, you guys, but oh my goodness, I cannot stop talking about this kid. He is going to be something else when he's playing. And honestly, we need to figure out ways to get him back on the field. We've got guys that we can put on the field and keep our defense fresh. But I keep getting ahead of myself. But let's look here at Ashton Craig's injury. So they played well. Guys like Ashton Craig played well. But unfortunately, as we said, it's not a foregone conclusion of how long this injury is going to sideline him. He could be back next week. It could be just a nagging injury that he's able to bounce back from. But I'll say this. I think with the way they played this week, now granted, Purdue is a bigger line. I will say this. I told you guys on the pre that I thought Purdue's line was going to be the weak. However, I said if this offensive line could dominate up front, there were some big plays to be had in the back end, and it was right. I was right. But as I said before, looking along here and thinking about what they did do and what they didn't do, I was more impressed with the idea that they said, okay, we understand what we have in Riley Leonard and what we don't have in Riley Leonard. And I'm going to be honest with you, they are doing a great job setting that up. However, the plays are going to have to get more. They're going to have to do more misdirection, and they're going to have to be more deceptive in it, because I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to keep getting away with this week in and week out, allowing him to just go around the outside and set up design runs. There are going to be defenses, especially faster defenses, that are going to basically, in a nutshell, game plan for it. And if Riley Leonard has not figured out how to throw a football yet, or accurately put the ball on the mark, kind of like Steve Angeli did when he dropped that one in the box, as I said, Steve Angeli looked impressive in the fact that he was able to drop some really good passes over the top and into the end zone, as well as moving without the ball. Now, the one thing I will say is he held on to the ball a little too much. He took a couple of unnecessary sacks in the game that he didn't need to. But I would say that it's going to be a quarterback controversy, but at the same time, it's no. But I gotta mention the O-line coach and their ability to understand that they can hammer away at a defense despite the fact that they had issues with injuries. I commend them for that. They were able to get things done on the fly, and that's very impressive. However, it goes deeper than that. You can't just depend on the offensive line to keep getting it done. We're going to have to take shots down the field. But with that being said, let me give a few quick noted shout-outs to Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchie, who had his first rushing touchdown as a member of the Fighting Irish. Not to mention, Steve Angeli had 2 passing touchdowns and was 6 of 9. But yeah, he took some sacks that you just kind of look at and say, Steve, you're holding on to the ball too much. And he had a good scamper too. He had a pretty good scramble in there as well. He had a 29-yarder. And but those sacks kind of took back because in college football it takes away from your rushing. So, as I said, I was very impressed with all of what are 3 quarterbacks that really had substantial reps. We got to see C.J. Carr. Everybody's raving about him, but I will say this. I was impressed with Angeli. I was impressed with Kenny Minchie, what I saw. So, as I said, all of our future is looking rather impressive. And I'm actually let me phrase it. I'm going to say I'm somewhat impressed by what we were able to do, especially with the second unit. We got to see guys like Devin Ford and Aeneas Williams. That Aeneas Williams is going to be a guy. I can't wait to see more of him. We've got a lot of guys on this roster of Irish Nation that are really, really good. And I see the future being really bright. But we got to go to the defense. We got to go to the defense. Led by Jason Onye, Jack Kaiser. Onye had a sack and a half. And Boubacar Traore had that pick 6, and he had a sack in this game. So, this is a big game for him. Especially with Batella going down. So, I see us being in good hands. And Batella also had a sack in this game. But you looking at what this defense has, Traore is a sophomore. He's nothing more than a sophomore from Boston, Massachusetts. But he is phenomenal. He is going to be a phenomenal player. Just does so many different things. And as I said, you guys, this Irish team has got a lot of talent on it. We just have to get the quarterback position right. That has ultimately been Notre Dame's problem over the last several years, is getting the quarterback position right. And just going down, you got, of course, Rod Hurd II with 4 tackles in this game. Of course, Kennedy Urlacher, this guy right here. Oh, he gets me so excited, you guys. Xavier Watts had limited action today. Jaden Osbury had 2 tackles. Jalen Sneed was great in coverage. Benjamin Morrison, once again, silent because he's done such a great job. Adon Schuler, a bunch of guys, Drake Bowen, R.J. Oben, Leonard Moore. Of course, Riley Mills was all over the place today, guys. And we got our one of the looks that I've been wanting to get with Bryce Young. Most of you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but that's Bryant Young's boy. Yeah, the NFL player. So, as I said, you guys, looking at this team and looking at how they came out and performed so brilliantly, the question is now coming up and coming up in a rise. Was last week a one-off? And the next question is, why can't the Irish perform like this every week? Well, that's a very good question. I think Marcus Freeman has to get with his coordinators and say, hey, look, we've got enough talent on this roster. If somebody doesn't want to play the game or they're having a bad night, it's that simple. Now, everybody's going to say this is Purdue. Purdue has a pretty darn good football team, but let's go here. Now, most of you guys remember this was, as I told you guys, a team that was coached. Offensive coordinator was Graham Harrell. 124, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Now, Reggie Love was the lone bright spot. He had 10 carries, 61 yards on the ground. Cam Brown had an impressive 52-yard haul where the defender actually just fell down and he was wide open. But outside of that, a lot of the guys that we talked about in the pregame were non-existent for the Purdue Boilermakers because the Notre Dame defense was just so stifling. Whether it was blitz packages and just great coverage, the Irish were on it all night. And unfortunately for Purdue, they ended up catching Notre Dame after the bed. And it's an unfortunate thing when you get a team of this potential and caliber that has a bad game and their rebound is you. Let me know what you guys think about it. Make sure if you subscribe, you leave your handle down in the comment section so I'll know that you're subscribed and I can add you to the list of the Talk Like a Champion family. Also, go to the Facebook page of Talk Like a Champion. Let me know what you guys are thinking out there. As well as go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo and find out the other things that I'm involved in. But until the next time, until we meet again, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun rise warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.